Okay, so my dad had got denied communion, and so my grandma, who was in the Way International, they've been in it for years. They wanted to, they wanted to discuss it, what happened, and I didn't know this at the time, but this was their plan to recruit us back to the Way. Okay, they brought a Way member, a couple Way coordinators, I believe, and we discussed it at the house, what had happened, and they talked to us, and it went well, and they asked, did we have any questions? And I was still struggling with the Trinity thing. And I asked them, what is the relationship between God and Jesus? Like, I see verses, it seems that he's God. I see verses where it seems that he isn't. And I asked them, and they had went to John 1. And I read verses in John 1, God's the Word became flesh. And I knew my grandma didn't believe in it, and I knew she's going to be upset, but, I'm accountable for myself. So anyway, they had pointed out, I think it's in John 1, I believe it's verse 18, and they pointed out that no man has seen God at any time. Okay, so then, that's where I got deceived, because it seemed clear that made sense. That's why you got to interpret verses and know the understanding. But from a natural examination of that verse, okay, clearly people saw Jesus as a baby, as a boy, a man. They crucified him. They touched him, all these things. And then to read that no man has seen God at any time, it would seem to contradict that. Okay, if Jesus is God and he's clearly been seen, then he isn't God, or else God would have been seen. But what the verse is saying is that God has never been seen in his full essence, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. And some people say God the Father, that's talking about God the Father. But regardless, nobody has seen God's face and lived. Jesus, people were able to see him because he was in the flesh. God can reveal himself that man can't see, but nobody can see his face in this flesh and live. Even in the Old Testament, God will reveal himself, through fire and things like that, so man could see him, so to speak. But yeah, that verse did it for me there. And my cousin, he was never really in the Word, but he got involved, and we all went to the Way. So me and my brother were going back. And the thing is, grace had changed. So it was no longer this, you have to dress up. If you miss, we're not going to be calling you. We'll check on you, make sure you're okay. But they said that we realized we were wrong, and this is about grace. So, I definitely wouldn't have been going there if it was on that. So now knowing the truth, I see it's a lot more subtle because it's still damnable heresy. So things like that. But we took the class, me, my brother, and cousin. My mom was going to another church, and they's always telling us how great the class is. It's a class of videotapes where they teach you the Word and things. And I was about 18 at the time, and to sound really rightly divided and wow, God is here and things like that. And we were trying to get our mom into it. Like, Mom, you got to come back. It's great. Like, it's not like that anymore. Our pastor, he's real cool, and he does all these nice things for us and all this stuff. And my mom didn't want to come at the time. And he's like, Mom, you're going to a church that teaches the Trinity. Why would you want to do that? Because you have to remember, we were in a non-Trinitarian church. They had convinced me, for myself, that it's not biblical. And, so for my mom to be there, that was upsetting, and I felt like she was missing out. But one way or another, they did convince her to take the class, and it was a matter of, just take the class, see if you like it. Taking the class does not require, being a member. They don't really do membership for the most part, but they, just take it. And she liked it, and you know, and she's back now and has been since then, you know. So, you know, I didn't know better then. I do feel bad now, but everything happens for a reason. And I know those who really belong to God, they'll come to the truth. So from there, so me, my brother, my cousin, and my mom, we were back in the way. And my grandparents were just very, very blessed. You know, it was always there. I didn't know this, but it was just always there. Their dream for us to take that class and you know, learn the word. You know, coming from their perspective, and that had happened, and you know, we were in the way, and got our cousin in too. You know, who was, you know, gang banging and things like that. But the switch began to happen when I started working at another job, and I picked up. I had a girlfriend. She worked there, and she believed in Jesus. Of course, I'm not going to date an atheist or anything less than Christ, a Christ believer. And she kind of heard about the way a little bit, and I finally got her to visit. It's something she did not want to do, especially she's shy in this household fellowship. So it's just a few people who study the Bible together and what have you. And, you know, she came, and she hated it. And we had broke up over that because it's unequally yoked. And, but eventually, you know, we tried to work it out again. I didn't want, you know, the Trinity to be a problem. You know, I really tried to look past it, like, you know, well, you do believe Jesus is God and I don't, but we do believe in the Bible and we're trying to live it and things like that. And so we did get back together. I promised her it wouldn't be a problem, but even though I meant well, it did become a problem because, you know, it was unequally yoked, and I really wanted her to take the class. And I really, really wanted her to. And she wanted to be sure she's going to go see for herself if, you know, this Trinity issue. And so me, her, and a friend, her uncle is a pastor of a church. And we set up a meeting to talk about it. And I told my grandpa about it, who was in the way. He's deceased now. But he was saying, like, it's not even best to go. Like, you ain't going to convince them. You know, they're already convinced and things. But I went anyway, and we talked about it. You know, it was a great conversation. And, you know, we shared where, you know, because me and a friend who don't believe in the Trinity either, we had shared, like, you know, we don't get where y'all coming from when Jesus is saying God is greater and he prayed to him and all those things. So he tried to show some verses and things, and yeah, I was open-minded. You know, I wouldn't have been there if I wasn't open-minded, but I didn't see it. But my girlfriend, she was convinced, and I was just very upset because I'm like, man, you can teach the Bible one-sided and make it make sense, and you know, you didn't even give, you know, the way a chance, you know, and she was just convinced that it was biblical. So that's where that started going downhill. But anyway, long story short, I got her to commit to the class. She said she would take it, and you know, she said she wanted it to be, whether she agreed with it or not, she wanted to, you know, that it would not affect our relationship. And I told her it wouldn't. So she was finally going to take it, but then I had mentioned how the class is a videotape session, and that was it for her. She's like, do you not know that's brainwashing? Like, you sit there and watch videotapes of them teaching, and you can't ask questions? And that was it from there. And I don't remember you know, how much longer it lasted. You know, we still dated from then, but you know, finally, it's like, man, we just made a mutual agreement to not date because it was unequally yoked, and so it wasn't your average, you know, cheating and lying and things. It was for God, And so that was really tough on me. And I told her how upset I was and things like that. And she had got her mom and family involved, and they told her, like, they told me, like, look, you're upset because you don't really know who Jesus is. And they asked, can we come over and talk to you about who he is? And even though I was convinced that Jesus isn't God, I was still willing to hear it, and they come over a couple times, and I let them discuss the Trinity, told my family and things like that I was going to be discussing with them. And even a couple way members over the phone, they got involved in things like that. But they had brought a friend as well who had been in the way in the past, and he had spoke on how they're loving and all that, and but he he now accepts the Trinity and that they were wrong on a lot of things and stuff, and how the class is. And so even after 2 sessions, I was open-minded, but I still didn't see it. I didn't see it, but I was thankful for the meetings and all that. It went well. It wasn't arguing and yelling, none of that. But what had happened, this was 2010, and what had happened, I'll be reading the word for myself. I was proud, like, I didn't fall for it, stand strong, they're wrong, and not in a prideful way, but, I was credited, like, hey, good job, standing strong, things like that. But I would read the word, and verses really just started throwing me off. Like, I started seeing, like, oh my goodness, looks like Jesus is God or what have you. And it got really, really frustrating, because, like, I didn't want to be wrong. And I don't mean in a prideful way. I mean, I want to agree with the Bible. Like, God, if you're saying, Jesus is God, I can't afford to be wrong on this. And I'm going to try to finish. I'm going to go one more video. I'm going to try to finish it up in the last one. So I'll be right back.